earlier today, we were talking to Just Mention about some of the outperformers within the market, and one of them is Constellation Energy. It is the third best performing stock within the S&P so far this year. It's basically a nuclear power provider. Now, the deal that we got on Friday was that Microsoft teamed up with Constellation Energy to restart their nuclear project on 3 Mile Island. It'll be about $1.6 billion. And we wanted to get more on this with Rob Barnett, Senior Energy and Commodities Analyst. He joins us now. Hey, Rob, was this a surprise to you?
Well, I don't think the idea of Microsoft chasing energy or electrons was a surprise. The idea that data centers and all the things we're doing with AI require a lot of energy, that's an emergent theme that we've been working on for a while. The nuclear angle is a bit of an interesting anecdote for the business. These data centers just consume a ton of power, and this just really signals about how much energy these kind of systems are using. And by 2030, we think that data center energy use or power use could grow something like 4x or even up to 10x within just a handful of years. So we think things are really growing fast, and this is just the latest signpost that this is a real trend that's occurring out there in the world.
Talk to me about the idea of having one customer demand so much power for data centers that it requires an entire power plant.
Yeah, I mean, when we first started thinking about this problem, I was a bit skeptical because I had seen some of the sort of titans of the tech industry talk about this idea that you need a breakthrough in energy, or that data centers could consume something like 20–25% of US power demand. And I thought, well, these people have created these really powerful tools that are creative and interesting, but they just don't understand the energy world. But when we went and started trying to tackle the problem, deconstruct it, and do a bottom-up analysis, if the tech industry really is going to build all of the systems that they say they're going to, the numbers or the ballpark is roughly accurate, that these data centers are really going to consume a lot of power. We did one of the things we did as part of our exercise is we just said, look, how many NVIDIA Blackwell GPUs are going to get sold over the next 12 months? And bottom up, we determined that based on all the chips they're going to sell, it could add something like 40 terawatt hours of power use to the grid just based on the first year of sales. A nuclear power plant maybe does 6–7 terawatt hours. So this one nuclear power plant that Microsoft cut a deal with Constellation for can't even power all the NVIDIA chips that we think are going to get sold over the next 12 months. So these are staggering numbers to think through. They're really big, and energy is a big constraint potentially for the rollout of AI.
So what are the potential headwinds? I mean, I think that it sounds like this is a really bullish take everyone has right now, but what should people be watching out for?
Well, I think the industry is going to have to adapt and get creative. In many markets around the U.S., if you roll up to your local utility and ask to get connected to the grid, you might get laughed at, particularly if it's a big data center project. We haven't done a gigawatt data center yet, but potentially some of that size might be in the offing. And I think it's just going to take a little bit of time to get everything connected. I think you are seeing a preference in some parts of the industry moving to places like ERCOT, Texas, where the regulatory system allows you to perhaps move a little bit more quickly to get new power plants, new transmission, things like that online versus a PJM market. But I think the tech industry wants the power, and they're going out to anyone who can potentially give it to them, including Constellation in this anecdote, and saying, look, we'll pay to get it done. And I think the tech industry is also very interested in reliable power. They want the data centers to be available 365 days a year, 24/7, and nuclear provides that kind of potential. And so there is an interesting case here. Unfortunately, there aren't too many mothballed nuclear power plants just sitting around ready for this kind of thing to be done with. But maybe we'll see a few more sort of anecdotes around nuclear. But to build new nuclear is kind of, you got to think in decade timescales, which is really beyond the speed with which some of these tech companies want to move.
So, Rob, Another solution people talk about are SMRs, small modular reactors. So they're supposed is that really something that can be scaled up economically for these hyperscalers?
Well, economically, let's see. We just don't have the data yet. I mean, it's potential that these new type of nuclear power plants could really be built quickly and built economically, but we haven't really started rolling them out yet. I mean, of course, we effectively use SMRs on nuclear submarines, aircraft carriers, things like that, but we really haven't rolled them out for civilian use. And there are a number of companies trying to do that now. And I think it's the jury's out on whether the business model will work or not. But one of the great things about, say, the solar industry is they're made on an assembly line. We just crank them out.
Exactly.
The old school nuclear power plants, every single one of them was essentially a one-off. But the SMR concept is build them on assembly lines and just roll them off and get the scale and learning. So it's an interesting idea, and I'm curious to see if it's going to work too.
Yeah, so you don't have to like custom design a nuclear plant per facility. You can sort of give ones you just plop down at the end of the day, for lack of a better word. Rob, thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. Rob Barnett, Bloomberg Intelligence Energy, Senior Energy and Commodities Analyst, joining us from Florida. Great stuff.